Right now, some people believe AI is about to make everyone rich. They see automation as freedom, efficiency as opportunity, scale as fairness. Others believe AI will destroy jobs. They see replacement, irrelevance, a future where human effort no longer matters. Both sides are loud. Both sides are emotional. Both sides are focused on outcomes. And both sides are missing the real story. Because the biggest change happening with AI is not technological. It is economic. Technology answers a simple question. What can we do now that we couldn't do before? Economics answers a far more important one. Who benefits when we do it? History has answered that question many times. Every major technological shift begins with excitement. Then comes fear. Then comes debate. And finally, quietly, comes redistribution. Not redistribution announced by governments. Not redistribution debated in public. Redistribution through ownership. This is not just another innovation cycle. It is not the internet. It is not social media. Those technologies sat on top of society. They changed communication. They changed culture. They changed visibility. AI is different. AI is being embedded inside the systems that decide value itself. Inside hiring decisions. Inside pricing models. Inside productivity. Inside judgment. This is not a tool sitting on top of the economy. This is a layer being installed inside it. And once something becomes infrastructure, it does not ask permission. Infrastructure does not argue. It does not persuade. It simply becomes unavoidable. History does not repeat itself loudly. It never has. It moves quietly. Through incentives, through ownership, through systems that appear neutral while silently shaping outcomes. No countdown, no breaking moment, no single headline you can point to, just alignment. And by the time headlines finally say, the AI bubble has burst, the most important part is already over. The wealth transfer is already complete. Not because something failed, but because the structure finished forming. This documentary is not about predictions. It is about what is already happening. Slow enough to ignore, fast enough to become permanent. When people hear the phrase AI bubble, their minds immediately reach for familiar patterns. Overvalued companies, hyped startups, inflated stock prices. They imagine charts rising too fast, investors chasing trends, easy money flowing without discipline. They think of the dot-com crash, pets.com, flashy ads, companies with no revenue, billions erased overnight. That story feels safe because it suggests the problem was irrational behavior, too much excitement, too much greed, too little caution. And if that's true, then the solution feels simple. Wait. Let the bubble burst. Let bad companies fail. Let the market reset. But that is not what bubbles actually do. Bubbles do not reset systems. They filter participants. The dot-com bubble did not destroy the internet. It destroyed who was allowed to benefit from it. Thousands of companies disappeared. Millions of people lost money. Entire careers ended. But the infrastructure remained. It consolidated. A small number of companies absorbed traffic, data, distribution, trust. When the dust settled, power was not gone. It was concentrated. The crash did not level the field. It tilted it permanently. AI is following the same pattern, but at a far greater speed. What took the internet 20 years, AI is compressing into 5, sometimes into 2. This is why focusing on valuations misses the point. Prices fluctuate, ownership hardens. The real danger is not overvaluation. It is misunderstanding who survives with control when attention moves on. Because attention always moves on. Ownership does not. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people interacting with AI today are not participating in its value creation. They are consuming it. They use tools. They test features. They optimize workflows. They become more efficient. And that feels like participation. But economically, it is not. Every major economic shift creates two silent groups: those who use the system and those who own the system. During the Industrial Revolution, workers used machines. Owners captured productivity. During the internet boom, users created content. Platforms captured value. AI follows the same logic. But this time, the line is almost invisible because AI feels personal. It responds, it adapts, it assists. That creates the illusion of partnership. But economically, AI behaves like capital, and capital does not distribute itself evenly. Every prompt adds training value. Every workflow increases dependency. Every integration strengthens lock-in. Participation feels empowering. In reality, it is contribution without ownership. And systems built on contribution rarely reward contributors equally. This is the point where the economic shift stops being theoretical and starts being felt. Not in stock markets, not in venture capital headlines, but in everyday work. People are doing more than ever before. Tasks that once required teams now fit inside a single workflow. Reports that once took weeks are generated in minutes. Creative output that once demanded departments now comes from individuals. On paper, this looks like progress. In practice, it produces a contradiction. Productivity rises, compensation stagnates. At first, this feels confusing. For generations, productivity was sold as a promise. Work harder, get better, become more efficient, earn more. That promise only worked under one condition: that productivity gains were shared. AI breaks that condition. When one person can do the work of 5, the system does not ask how to reward that person. It asks how many people can now be removed from the equation. This is not cruelty, it is optimization. Optimization does not negotiate, it does not empathize, it does not reward loyalty, it reduces cost. Companies do not pay more because output increased. They normalize higher output. What once made someone exceptional becomes the new baseline. And when the baseline rises, labor loses leverage. The value created by AI does not disappear. It concentrates. It moves toward ownership, toward capital, toward whoever controls systems, platforms, and distribution. This is why people feel a strange pressure. They are more capable than ever, more productive than ever, and yet more replaceable than ever. AI does not eliminate labor. It devalues labor relative to leverage, and leverage has never belonged to workers at scale. Productivity without bargaining power. There is another layer beneath this. AI creates output without increasing bargaining power. Historically, skilled labor could negotiate because skills were scarce. AI turns skills into processes. Once a skill becomes a process, it stops being scarce. Once it stops being scarce, it stops commanding premium value. This is why people sense that effort feels pointless, not because effort no longer matters, but because effort no longer compounds. AI compounds leverage. It does not compound effort. That is the economic distinction most discussions avoid. AI does not replace everyone. That belief distracts from what is actually happening. AI reshapes the internal structure of work. The first-order effect is speed. The second-order effect is control. For decades, modern economies relied on a thick middle layer. Not executives, not manual labor. The middle, managers, analysts, consultants, professionals who translated complexity into decisions. This layer existed to absorb uncertainty, to interpret data, to coordinate people, to apply judgment. AI absorbs these functions gradually. A report becomes a dashboard. A forecast becomes a model. A meeting becomes an automated summary. A recommendation becomes a system output. No collapse occurs. Roles do not vanish overnight. They thin, and thinning is quiet. It does not trigger panic. It does not cause riots. It does not appear in unemployment numbers immediately, but it changes economic flow. Because the middle class was never just about income. It was about circulation. Middle roles historically bought homes, took mortgages, invested capital, funded consumption, stabilized demand. When this layer weakens, the economy does not collapse, it tilts. Consumption slows, risk concentrates, capital flows upward, not because of ideology, not because of conspiracy, because systems optimize for efficiency, and AI is the most efficient optimizer ever introduced into an economy. Why this accelerates wealth transfer? When the middle thins, two things happen. At the top, decision-makers gain leverage. One executive with AI can now oversee what once required layers of management. At the bottom, service work persists. It cannot be fully automated, but the space between collapses. This is where wealth transfer accelerates. Because wealth compounds in the middle. When the middle erodes, ownership gains relative power automatically. AI does not create inequality. It removes friction that once slowed it down. If this shift is so significant, why does it feel so calm? Because disruption usually looks like loss. Factories closing, jobs disappearing, systems failing. AI looks like improvement. Workflows get smoother, errors decline, speed increases. People feel helped, and systems that help are trusted. No one is forced to adopt AI, they choose it. But once productivity expectations change, non-adopters fall behind. At that point, adoption is no longer optional. It is survival. And survival decisions are never political. They are personal. That is why this transition feels invisible. Millions of individuals making rational choices produce a collective outcome that no one explicitly voted for. Dependency without force. Powerful systems do not impose behavior. They shape defaults. AI nudges people toward renting intelligence, leasing productivity, subscribing to capability. Ownership becomes abstract. Access feels sufficient until access is limited, repriced, conditioned. By the time that happens, alternatives no longer exist. Because ownership decisions are rarely made during crisis, they are made during comfort. And AI is designed to feel comfortable. Every major technology cycle follows a pattern that looks chaotic on the surface but is extremely consistent underneath. At first, there is discovery, a breakthrough, a capability that feels impossible, a sense that everything is about to change. Then comes excitement. Capital rushes in, media attention explodes, every company finds a way to attach itself to the trend. At this stage, the conversation is optimistic. New opportunities, new careers, new wealth. But excitement is not where power forms. Power forms after excitement fades. The next phase is overvaluation. Money moves faster than understanding. Valuations rise faster than revenue. Narratives expand faster than reality. This is where most people believe the story ends. A crash, a correction, a reset. But that belief misunderstands what crashes actually do. Crashes do not destroy technology. They restructure control. When hype peaks and attention shifts, something subtle happens. Public conversation slows down. Speculation cools. Weak players begin to disappear. Not dramatically, quietly. Funding dries up. Hiring freezes. Projects are paused. This is the phase where the real work begins. Because while the public looks away, infrastructure hardens. Companies that survive this phase are not the most exciting ones. They are the ones that control distribution data, pipelines, standards, integration points. After the dot-com crash, thousands of internet companies died. But the internet did not decentralize. It centralized. Amazon did not win because it had the best website. It won because it controlled logistics. Google did not win because it had the flashiest interface. It won because it controlled discovery. AI will follow the same path. Not through dramatic monopolies announced overnight, but through structural lock-in. Models will consolidate. Tooling will standardize. APIs will define workflows. At that point, choice still exists, but only on the surface. You can choose how to use the system. You cannot choose whether to depend on it. This is the moment when AI stops being a product and becomes infrastructure. And infrastructure does not compete. It is assumed. Once AI reaches this stage, innovation does not disappear. It becomes permissioned, built on top of dominant systems, constrained by licensing, filtered by platform rules. This is where power becomes invisible, not through force, not through censorship, but through dependency. The public narrative at this stage focuses on maturity. The technology is no longer exciting, no longer scary, just normal. And normal is dangerous. Because normal systems are rarely questioned. By the time people realize that, alternatives no longer exist, switching costs or permanent ownership is unreachable. The consolidation is complete. The hype did not fail. It served its purpose. It attracted capital. It built adoption. It normalized dependence. And then it exited quietly, leaving behind a hardened structure that quietly decides who captures value and who merely participates. This is why the bubble narrative is misleading. The bubble is not the end of the story. It is the setup. What comes after is not collapse. It is control. This documentary is not meant to alarm. Warnings assume collapse. Collapse is loud. What AI is doing is directional. That is why this is not a warning. It is a map. Maps do not tell people what to do. They show where they are. Most people still treat AI as a tool, something to learn, something to optimize, something to use faster. But tools do not determine outcomes. Position does. AI does not reward effort. It does not reward intent. It amplifies leverage. Leverage means proximity to decisions. Leverage means control over distribution. Leverage means influence over standards. Those who work inside systems experience AI as speed. Those who control systems experience AI as scale. Speed and scale are not equal. Economies do not reward access. They reward control. This is not a moral judgment. It is a structural reality. AI is not a bubble in the traditional sense. It does not rise and disappear. It settles. The hype fades. Headlines move on. Attention shifts. Infrastructure remains, models, platforms, licensing structures, standards, invisible components that quietly decide how value flows. At that stage, AI no longer feels new, it feels necessary. Like electricity, like logistics, like the internet, always present, rarely questioned, usually owned by someone else. Some people will continue renting intelligence by the hour. Others will decide who gets access, at what price, and under what conditions. That divide will not be announced. It will not trend. It will become normal. And normal is how systems endure. By the time most people realize what actually changed, the wealth will already be somewhere else, not lost, just no longer reachable. AI-powered studio.